Hey y'all, my name is Brianna, kind of new. This is my first video on my channel, but I thought that it would be something really interesting to talk about. And it really describes a lot about me, but also I think it's something that would help a lot of teens, um, teen moms, anyone who's even dads, anyone who's going through the same thing that I'm going through, and maybe that I could give some advice or shed some light on how it is being a teen mom and adjusting. But one of the things I'm going to touch on in my video is how I found out I was pregnant, how I told my family I was pregnant, how he told his family I was pregnant, how to balance your time as a parent, a new parent, and my relationship now after the baby, and kind of how my overall pregnancy went. But so I found out I was pregnant in July of 2017. I was 16 when I got pregnant, but I was 17 when I had my daughter. My period is super duper regular. Like, it usually comes on the same day of every month. So my period came on June 3rd of 2017. So when July 3rd came around, it didn't come on, but I didn't think anything of it. And I usually cramp the day before my period, so I started cramping on July 4th, and I was like, oh, okay, so my period will come tomorrow or the day after or whatever. 3 days later, no period, still cramping, and I'm like, okay, period, where you at? So I'm waiting, and it never came. July 6th came around, and it still wasn't there, so I told my boyfriend what was going on, and he was like, well, maybe we should take a test. So we took a test, and it was the pink one. I don't remember the name of it. You know, the one that says 6 days sooner. Well, anyway, took the test, and it came back, and it was this really, really pale second pink line. But we were like looking at it, and we were like, okay, maybe it's a trick of the light, because it really doesn't look like it's there. So we decided to take another test. We went to the store and bought like this really super cheap test. It was like $2, and it came back positive, no questions asked. Like, obviously this is positive. So we stopped taking tests, and we were like, okay, well, we'll just go to a doctor and get it confirmed, or, you know, not confirmed, whatever the case may be. I made an appointment, and I went to the doctor, and when I told her when my last period was, she was like, okay, well, you're around 8 to 9 weeks. She calculated my due date. She said my due date would be March 13th, 2018. And she basically confirmed it. She signed her name, my name, the date, the due date, and that the pregnancy test was positive. And that was sent off to the obstetrician that I set up, but I had to get confirmed for my Medicaid to cover my pregnancy first. Once I got that, I made an appointment with the obstetrician, and they were backed up. They were really backed up. So when I went to get my pregnancy confirmed, I was 8 weeks, but by the time I got my first doctor's appointment, I was 15 weeks pregnant. 15 weeks and 3 days, and they recalculated my due date, and it was March 10th, 2018 instead of the 13th. So, we got the ultrasound done that very first day at my doctor's, and they said that the baby was the right size. She was developing really well. There was no problems that they could see. My blood pressure was normal. My vital signs were okay. I was the very exact right size. I hadn't gained too much weight. I was gaining just right. So, you know, from there we just made our next appointment, and once I went to my first appointment, that's when I decided I was ready to tell my grandmother who raised me. So that night I went home, and I walked in the kitchen, and I had the ultrasound in my hand, and I was about to tell her, and when she was turning around, I like punked out last minute and threw the ultrasound behind my back. She's like, Bree, why you just standing there? I was like, oh, nothing. And I walked backwards all the way to my room. Like, that's how serious it was. And I texted my baby's father, and I was like, okay, well, I think I'm ready to tell my grandmother. And we wanted to tell her together, but every time we said we were going to do it, we kind of like decided not to do it. So I told her by myself, and it was like 11 o'clock that night, and I was in the kitchen and I was eating. I don't remember what I was eating, but I was hungry, not during the day, but especially late at night, the whole time I was pregnant. But anyway, I was eating late at night. And by the way, I didn't gain, like, I really didn't look pregnant. I wasn't showing until I was into, I would say, my 7th month. But anyway, that's why she didn't know. I was like 15 weeks and she still couldn't tell. But anyway, I was like, Granny, I gotta tell you something. She said, what? I said, okay, but if I tell you, you have to promise you won't be mad. She said, okay, well, tell me what it is before I can promise that. I said, but promise you won't stress about it either. She was like, you're pregnant. And I just looked at her and did like that. And she kind of didn't say anything. She just looked at me for maybe 5 minutes and walked out into her room and closed the door. The next day, she didn't say anything about it. She didn't bring it up. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe she thought it was a dream. Maybe she forgot. I don't know. And then, out of nowhere, in the middle of that day, she said, Bree, you couldn't just wait. And at first I was confused, but then I realized she was asking me, could I have not just waited to have sex? And I didn't know what to say to that, so I just didn't reply at all. I kind of just, walked away from the conversation because I didn't want to have the conversation at the time. And that pretty much my whole pregnancy, she was not happy about it. She was not positive about it. She wasn't really there, I would say, until I went into labor. So I went into labor on March 10th, 2018. Yes, I went into labor on my due date, which is crazy. I made it all the way to 40 weeks, but I did not have her until March 11th, 2018. So I was 40 weeks in one day. I carried her full term. And I had like these back pains. I wouldn't even say back pains. It felt like kind of like something in my back was stretching, but I wasn't doing any stretching, so I don't understand, why. And I didn't pay it much attention because everybody says that contractions feel like cramps, really bad cramps, but that is not necessarily true for every woman because I didn't feel that at all. Even when I got, towards the end of my labor and they were getting a lot more intense, it was still just in my back. They just hurt more. But I didn't pay much attention until it went on for like an hour consistently. So it was about 9 o'clock when I realized, okay, I think these might be contractions. And I was with my baby father at the time, so I told him what I was feeling. And I was like, okay, well, let me time them. So I timed every time I would feel one, and it would happen every about 8 minutes. So by the time 10 o'clock rolled around, it would happen every 3 to 5 minutes. So we were like, okay, we're gonna go to the hospital, and we kept our hospital bag in the car at all times in case anything happened. So we said, okay, yeah, let's go to the hospital. I called my grandmother and I told her, we're on the way to the hospital. I'm feeling something really weird. I think it might be contractions. And she said, okay, we'll call back and let me know. We got to the hospital at about 11:30 that night. The doctor said, yeah, you're having contractions. And usually they send you home if you're not I think you have to be 3 or 4 centimeters before they keep you. But because I was already full term and I already had an inducement date set up, they kept me, and I was only 1.5 centimeter. So they kept me in the exam room and she checked me. And how they check you is they put a glove on and they use like lubricant or gel, and the nurse put basically her whole hand in my vagina, and she felt my cervix, and she could only fit a fingertip in there. So she was like, okay, you're 1.5 centimeters. And after that, they had me put on a gown, and I went to my delivery room. When I got to my delivery room, they put me on an IV, which is like something that goes permanently in your arm. They put me on an IV, and in the IV, I had something to keep me hydrated because I wasn't allowed to drink or eat. they put me on Pitocin. Pitocin is a hormone you naturally secrete when you're going into labor, and that increases the contractions. But because they wanted to speed mine up, basically, they gave me the synthetic hormone Pitocin, and it just boosted the amount I had in my body so that my contractions would come on stronger and faster really quick. And I was having contractions, I would say, every 3 minutes at that time, but they were really super intense, and I was only 2 centimeters dilated by that point. So I went to sleep. My baby's father, he slept on the little pull-out bed they give that's in the room. He slept on that, and I went to sleep, and I slept for about, I would say, an hour, and I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning on March 11th, 2018, and my contractions were a lot more intense. That's what woke me up. So I asked her if I could have something for pain, and she gave me I don't know what it's called actually, but whatever they gave me made me super drowsy. So I was really, really sleepy, and I was able to sleep for another hour, and I woke up at 2 o'clock, and my contractions, they were doubling up. They hurt really, really bad, and yeah, it just really sucked. But when she checked me again, they were checking me every hour, so she checked me again at 2 o'clock, and when she checked me that time, she said, okay, you're 4 centimeters dilated. So that was a good sign, at least. And my baby father, he was still asleep. I was okay, so I didn't wake him up. But when it was time for me to go to the restroom, I needed help, you know. I was not numb, but I was really super drowsy, so I was kind of swaying on my feet, so I needed help to get to and from there. And when my contractions got really, really bad, I went to sleep one more time, and I woke up again at 4 o'clock in the morning. My contractions were really, really bad. They were doubling up, you know. I would say I would have one contraction every minute, or I would have a contraction, and when it went down, another one would come right back after it. And it was just really, really painful. And my whole pregnancy, I went to the doctor by myself. I signed myself up at my doctor by myself. I signed for my own medication. I had no idea that I needed my parent or guardian, to sign for the epidural. So by the time my contractions were pretty terrible, they said, oh, you need your parent or you can't get the epidural. I'm like, are you serious? So I had to stick through it for another 2 hours before my grandmother could show up and sign for the epidural. And when I got the epidural, it was heaven. Like, literally, the anesthesiologist came to see me, and my baby father held my hand. My grandmother, she doesn't like blood. She doesn't like anything medical. She walked out of the room. So my baby father, he held my hand, and the doctor, the anesthesiologist, he stuck this, I didn't feel any of it, but he saw all of it. He cleaned off my back. He stuck this really, really huge needle into my back. When I say this needle is huge, because you're also going to get an IV in your back, and it's like this wide. So imagine what the needle has to be for the IV to go through it. So anyway, they put the IV in my back, and I had a button that I could press to get more dosages, but I never pressed it. I didn't get more doses. I only had the 1 dose of the epidural, and I was fine. I was numb for the rest of the time, because when they checked me again at that point, it was 9 o'clock that morning. I was still only 4 centimeters. So once I got the epidural, I was numb. I went to sleep. My baby father went to go get food. He ate. I went to sleep. I woke up again, I'd say about 11 o'clock, and the doctor came in, and he said, okay, now you're 5 centimeters, and I'm just going to go ahead and break your water. And he took, like, it looked like a popsicle stick, and he, you know, put his hand in my vagina, of course, and he poked my bag of water. And, you know, it wasn't really a gush. It was like a slow trickle of the amniotic fluid. And then I went to sleep again, and I woke up, and it was about 1:30, and the nurse came in one more time, and she said, and I was numb, but I felt this really, really hard pressure, like something was pressing on me really hard. It didn't hurt, but I felt it. And I was thinking, I think maybe that's her head, and I think it's Tom. So when she came to check me at 1:30, she was going in to check my cervix, and she hit a head. She said, "Oh yeah, it's time for you to push. I'm gonna go get the doctor." So she ran to go get the doctor, and the doctor came, and he said, "Oh yeah, it's definitely Tom." And the nurse talked me through it. She said, "Every time you feel a contraction come on, you're gonna bear down, you're gonna hold your breath, you're gonna push until you get to 10." And I did it. I did that 3 times, and my baby father was at my right side holding my leg, and he saw her head, and he smiled at me. And of course he was really freaked out at first. So when he first saw everything that was going on, he was really freaked out. But then when he saw her head, it kind of changed his perspective, and he didn't feel so overwhelmed, and he didn't look at it as if it was something that was weird or disturbing, because that's his daughter, of course. And they asked me, do I want a mirror? They pushed a mirror to kind of not in front of me, but kind of diagonal from me, and angled it. And I looked in the mirror while I was pushing, and when I could see her head moving, like something just gave me motivation, and I pushed one more time, and her head shot out. And they were like, no, stop. Like, they had to make me stop pushing because the doctor wasn't ready yet. He was still putting on his gloves. So I pushed one more time after that, and she came out yelling into the world. And it was crazy, and it was the best thing ever. And I didn't know if I wanted to laugh or cry. And it took me 15 minutes to push. And I had 4 stitches afterwards. I had 2 tiny tears on each side. And her dad cut the umbilical cord, and he took pictures. They took her to put vitamin K shots, and they put this kind of topical in her eyes, just so her eyes don't get infected or anything. They wiped her down, and he went with her while they did that. And then they switched our rooms, and we were in the hospital for 2 more nights. And I decided to breastfeed, so I'll make another video on breastfeeding, my tips, what you should know before you breastfeed, things like that. And now that we're home, we're really adjusting to not having so much time to ourselves, but that is time for her, and that's okay. It's been a very good experience. I think the biggest thing with a newborn is learning how to manage time. I don't care if you're 30 and you're having your first child and you're married. You have to learn how to manage your time with a newborn. And it's really, really hard, because when I got home, because I'm breastfeeding, of course, I have to eat 3 meals a day. I have to have a balanced diet. I can't eat fast food or junk food or quick snacks. I have to eat 3 full meals for her. And when I'm so tired because she's up and she needs me constantly through the night, how can I find time to get up during the day while he's off at work and cook a full meal? And what if I start to cook a full meal and she wakes up in the middle of that meal, and so I can't watch my food and watch her at the same time? Or what if all her clothes are dirty? I have to find time to wash those clothes. I have to find time to eat. It's even hard to find time to shower, y'all, like seriously. And if it's really helpful, you're gonna need a support person. You're gonna need somebody that can help you. You're going to need someone there sometimes, and even if it's just to take a moment to breathe. I know that's your child. I know you're going to love your child. I definitely love my daughter so much, but at the same time, I got overwhelmed. I had those days where I just got up and I just was not feeling it. I'm not gonna say I couldn't do it. I did it. I could do it. But it was just that, it was really stressful. So sometimes her dad will take her and sit with her for a full hour or 2 and let me just catch a break. I don't care if I'm just taking a long hot shower or taking a long hot bath that I can enjoy, or reading a book, anything, just to take time to yourself. It's definitely been a great experience, and I feel like me and my boyfriend are closer than ever. We've experienced another major life event together. We stayed strong throughout it. We're not perfect. No relationship is perfect, but he was there for me throughout my whole pregnancy, and I have so much respect for single mothers, not to mention single teen mothers, because I do not know what I could have done if he had not been there for me. But she's happy, she's healthy. And funny story, she was born with an extra finger because I was as well. It was cut off. I still have a little nub right here. She was also born with an ear tag, but her extra finger is gone, so now she still has that little nub like me, but her ear tag is still there. She's gonna have that removed in surgery in about 6 months, and she's happy and healthy and just a great baby. And you know, she sleeps mostly through the night now. She's 7 weeks. She just turned 7 weeks this past Sunday. Today is May the 2nd, Wednesday, May the 2nd. So she just turned 7 weeks Sunday. She'll be 1 month, 2 months very soon. And it was great. You know, I think the hardest time is in the beginning, but it definitely does get easier. And don't think that you can't do what you want to do or pursue your dreams just because you have a child. I am currently in college. I graduated high school 1 year early, and I went to college. I finished my first semester while I was pregnant. I started my second semester while I was pregnant, and I was in the last month of my second semester when I went into labor and had her. I took 2 weeks out of school and I went back and I finished. Just yesterday was my last day. I finished all my exams. I have completed my whole first year. I am in tech, going for an associate's in nursing. So don't think that you can't do what you want to do. You can't pursue your dreams just because you're a teen mom. A baby does not stop you. Your baby will only slow you down, but you can still do it. My next video will be my morning routine with her, and so please look out for that. Subscribe, comment on this video if you have any questions, if you're going through a similar experience, if you know anyone going through a similar experience. Just, yeah, please subscribe and like it, and stay tuned because my next video will be our morning routine and probably our night